that's working night and day to fight crime and keep our streets safe. So it's great to be here. Thank you, Sheriff. I want to thank Chief Gerke from the St. Cloud Police Department, Chief Broadway from Kissimmee PD for being here, our federal partners from Homeland Security, our prosecutors and our Office of Statewide Prosecution, the investigators, the ICAC team, everybody coming together to do the most important thing, which is protect our kids. That right there, that is the greatest threat to our families here in this state. That is pure evil. These 16 individuals that have been arrested, and we also have operations in other parts of the state today that have led to 30 more arrests. They're going after our kids. These people, they're talking online on social media apps. They're communicating with what they think are teenagers, and then they're going to try to meet up with and have sex with little kids. That is pure evil. And we will stop at nothing to keep finding every single one of them. And we will prosecute them to the fullest. And we will call for the longest sentences we can get. And as you know, here in Florida, we've been the first state to bring back the death penalty for child sex battery. We're likely going to have to go up to the U.S. Supreme Court to get that reinstated. There's been an old case that declared that unconstitutional. I think that interpretation was wrong. We are ready to fight that fight. When you take away the innocence of a young child, when you commit such a heinous act, you must face the full force of justice, full accountability. You need to meet your maker and atone for your sins. We can't do anything to help you here. So we're going to continue prosecuting these cases. We're going to work together with all of our interagency partners. That's what makes this so beautiful and fun. I hate that these guys are out there, but they are. And we're going to keep finding them. And it takes everybody working on the same mission, working to protect our kids. I've been in office just a little over a year, and believe it or not, we have arrested over 1,400 child predators, which is a big record here in Florida. And people keep asking, do you think there's more predators today than there used to be? I do think with the dangers of the internet and pornography and, the temptations that are out there, you do see more people turning towards this sadistic, grotesque behavior. But I also think there was a lot going on out there before that we're just now shining a light on. We're utilizing technology. We're staying ahead of the criminals. We're able to detect a lot that probably occurred for many years undetected. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank everybody up here. They're doing the Lord's work. There's a reason why Florida's the safest state to raise a family. There's a reason why our crime rates keep going down. It's because we enforce rule of law, and we've got great law enforcement that knows we have their backs. When they bring in bad guys, we are going to prosecute to the fullest. I want to conclude by saying, we still have many judges in this state that don't take these crimes seriously enough. They say that a kid didn't actually get hurt, so they hand out lighter sentences for some of these people that are soliciting and traveling to sleep with kids. They hand out lighter sentences for people that are purchasing and sharing thousands or millions of files depicting child pornography. That is wrong. This is just one slippery slope away from serious physical abuse that children will never recover from. We have to hand out long sentences. And where judges don't want to do that, where they want to allow evil back on the street, we need to hold them accountable. Yesterday I joined the governor in calling for the impeachment of a judge up in Tallahassee, Tiffany Baker, who allowed released on his own recognizance an individual who was sentenced or convicted by a jury of trying to sleep with a child. A dangerous felon, a child predator, allowed to go free while awaiting sentencing. And during that time period, he killed a 5-year-old girl. This cannot happen. The judiciary does not sit up on this white ivory tower where we can't touch them. The impeachment provisions are in our Constitution here in Florida, just like you see at the federal level, and it's time we use those provisions. Here in Florida, we have Republican supermajorities in our legislature. If they can't impeach a judge who allowed a child predator to go free and kill a 5-year-old, who can? They have a job to do. I look forward to working with them to get that judge off the bench. Our kids are too important. Safety is too important. We cannot let that stand. So God bless you all. Thank you for being here. And I'll turn it over now to Rita Peters, who's our special counsel in our Office of Statewide Prosecution and who is these guys' worst nightmare. So thanks, Rita.
Thank you. I stand before you honored to represent Attorney General James Uthmeier because he has the mission that I have worked my entire career for, the mission to keep Florida safe and to keep our children protected. I stand alongside our law enforcement partners in a unified effort to keep Florida safe. Protecting children is not just some campaign promise. It's a fundamental public safety responsibility. And individuals who travel with the intent to exploit these children pose an immediate threat to our communities. These traveling operations are proactive in nature, designed to intervene before a child is harmed, rather than responding after the child has been victimized. The purpose of these operations is to identify those who want to exploit our children, to apprehend offenders who will take substantial steps, such as coming to these operations with gifts, with condoms, and other type of matter to show their intent of having sexual activity with these minors. We're trying to disrupt their criminal conduct at the point where their intent becomes action. These investigations make clear that online exploitation does not remain confined to digital spaces because we are there, and it escalates often into real-world danger if left unchecked. These efforts depend on strong collaboration between local, state, and federal enforcement agencies, each contributing specialized expertise to the operation, and we're so thankful to be in lockstep with our law enforcement partners. This coordinated approach reflects a unified system where investigation and prosecution work hand in hand from the outset to have cases that are strong and have strong outcomes. I want to thank the Osceola County Sheriff's Office for their leadership and commitment to this operation, as well as all the local and state and federal law enforcement agencies who assisted in this endeavor, and also to my Orlando Bureau counterparts or co-workers who also assisted. These operations are only possible through strong collaboration and professionalism and coordination that are demonstrated in this particular cases that we have here. They reflect a shared dedication to protect our children and hold offenders accountable. To those who intend to exploit our children, the message should be clear by now. Traveling to meet a child for sexual purposes will result in your arrest and your prosecution and your ultimate sentence. Online anonymity will no longer protect your criminal conduct, and we are going to ensure that we come and we get you, and we are actively locating you, investigating you, and apprehending you. We will continue to work in partnership with our law enforcement to identify these offenders, build strong cases, and hold those who seek to harm children fully accountable. As General Uthmeier often says, if you hurt our children, the state of Florida will come after you with everything we've got, and that's a promise. Thank you.
I want to point out a couple other facts about who's on the board here. One of these individuals is illegally in the country, shouldn't be here in the first place. You also have individuals that have been in employment in positions where they have a lot of interaction with kids. You've got a bus driver, a security guard, a guy that has worked at Disney World on property, engaging with a lot of kids. So this is a major wake-up call. It could be anybody. You don't know. So you as parents, as grandparents, you are the first line of defense to educate your kids, to make sure they're not talking with strangers. If they're talking to a stranger online, you have to assume the worst. These people are smart. They pretend to be children. They use fake photographs. We've gone after all these social media companies because they don't have proper age verification. They allow adults to come on, use fake names, use fake photos, and they'll spend weeks or months building a relationship with a kid. tying into insecurities and vulnerabilities, asking personal information, soliciting photos and videos, and then exploiting, threatening, and in the worst of cases, abusing our kids. That can't happen. It's not going to happen here in Florida. If you come after our kids, if you sexually abuse them, we're going to seek the death penalty where the law permits it, and we're otherwise going to lock you up for absolutely as long as possible, full stop. So with that, we've got time for a few questions if there's any.
Can you talk about the operation and kind of what work went into making these arrests here? How long it lasted?
Sure. I believe it was 4 or 5 days here recently in March. You had a lot of undercover police officers, investigators, people from the ICAC team that, again, are pretending to be young people. And so these villains on the other side that are all engaging in very sexual conversation and then ultimately attempting to go meet with children, they think they're about to meet a kid, and then they find out they're actually meeting a police officer. So you hate, every time we do one of these, I kind of pray we don't find anybody. We do them almost every week somewhere in Florida. And I pray, man, maybe this time we won't actually find somebody. We always do, and I'm glad we do. Because we got to get these people away from our kids before we have more people get hurt.
Attorney General, what is your response to the NFL commissioner's response to your actions last week, basically just saying that he's in the room?
Well, you know, here in Florida, we enforce the law. We have a Civil Rights Act that's been on the books for a long time. I know now a lot of corporate America is starting to revisit these policies where they would hire advanced people and provide preference based on the color of one's skin. We had a lot of laws here in the books in Florida that gave preference in contracts and procurement to minorities and people based on the color of their skin. That's government discrimination based on race. That is unconstitutional. Our Supreme Court has held as much. At the end of the day, you know, the NFL's had this rule where they require teams to go interview X many minorities before making a hire. Imagine being somebody where you get called in to interview for a job and you don't know, like, am I actually getting called because I'm good and they want me for my merit, or am I being called in to interview because of the color of my skin? So if they want to continue to break Florida law, we will have to pursue litigation and enforce our Civil Rights Act. At the end of the day, I think people at home, football teams to win because they're good. They don't want their teams to, you know, have a coach of a certain color. I don't believe that. And I do not believe the NFL's racist. When you look at the composition of team, staff, and coaches, it's already a majority-minority organization. So I hope they scrap this rule. I hope they revisit it. We've given them until May 1 to provide their official response to our office. And then, you know, the easy way or the hard way. If we have to go the hard way, we will.
So what is that hard way that doesn't happen after May 1st?
Well, it's a state law being violated, so the state would seek a legal recourse in state court. Yes, sir. Let me spread around. There's some other questions. Yes, sir.
Attorney General, can you speak to this being a multi-agency operation, and can we also expect any stings similar to this in any other counties?
Oh, you better believe it. We're going to be out there hunting these people down. If you are a child predator, stay the heck out of Florida. I mean, don't do it in the first place, but you're a moron if you're doing it here, because we're coming for you. Something tells me these guys aren't the sharpest tools in the shed to be doing this in the first place. Yeah, the interagency aspect, best job. People ask me every day, what's your favorite part of this job? And it is the best job I'll probably ever have. It's getting to work with all these guys, getting to support them. Law enforcement, they put their lives on the line every single day for a lot of strangers, for our citizens, our families at home. And we got a good thing going here in Florida. You don't see the chaos and the turmoil and the tension between interagency, you know, folks like you do in other states like Minnesota. Down here, we row in the same direction. We don't care about attention, pride. I mean, I'm standing up here, but God bless the people that are actually doing the hard day-to-day work, talking to these guys, having to review horrific imagery and a lot of the child predator cases, ultimately presenting them in court like Rita and her team do, and then putting them away. We just need our judges to step up and do their job.
Do you know if any of these are repeat offenders?
I don't know that answer. Do you guys know? I do not believe so.
You mentioned access to children. Some of these individuals had a position where they had that regular access? How concerning is that? And do you know how long they may have had that access in those positions that you mentioned there?
A lot of this is still coming out in the investigation, so I can't go too far in detail. I just think it's a wake-up call that sometimes the pedophiles, these perverts, you wouldn't expect it. You know, as a company, if somebody doesn't have a criminal record and if you're not aware of knowledge, you would not know. We were talking before we came in, you know, some of our recent cases have involved some pastors or people that have, you know, senior positions, even at churches around little kids. So you got to do due diligence, and I think the lesson for parents is don't let your kids be alone with strangers that you don't know, because you never know what could be happening. Hold on, go ahead. I'll come back to you, but let me just grab it.
President's attorney, the bail system with these guys, how is it working with them? Are they all on bail right now?
Some are. Now, we passed the governor signed a law yesterday that's going to prevent people that get sentenced that are dangerous from having bail. But if you're going to try to sleep with a child, you are a danger. You should not be on bail. So we've got to keep cracking down to prevent a lot of these dangerous people from being out on the streets. But yeah, it sounds like some of them probably are.
Where's the funding come from these?
Funding comes from various different entities. I mean, you certainly have the operational funds at each law enforcement agency. We have ICAC funding that comes from the state. There's federal funding. There's also grants and things through a lot of our outside groups that we partner with. When we've been able to rescue children, we've rescued over 300 children in Florida in the last year that were previously reported missing. We worked with over a dozen nonprofit groups that help us to counsel, rehab, and take care of a lot of these kids. So it comes from many different places. Do you have one more?
Yes. I think you may have touched on it earlier. What are your thoughts on the Supreme Court denying the state's request for the execution of James Duffy?
I think that individual did some pretty terrible things. I think he was on death row for a reason. We had a jury that gave him the ultimate form of justice, and that justice needs to be served. Obviously, I'm the chief legal officer. I respect the ruling of the Supreme Court. We'll continue to litigate. We'll continue to ensure that we're satisfying, you know, all appeals and giving the process that's due. But I hope that we can carry out that execution before all is said and done. And it looks like the governor's got a couple more warrants on the way.
I know that April 7th is that deadline. Do you think that would be done before then, or will it take some more time?
I don't know at this time. Anybody else?
How do you help the families of those children who have been victimized?
Rita, you want to touch on this?
We have a very robust victim services part of our office, as well as law enforcement and a lot of the non-governmental organizations that work with us, such as we have Raven, and then there's some other groups that work with our victims. And if it's a minor, it's usually services for the entire family, so that they are there to provide whatever the family needs, whether it's daycare, whether they need security, whether they need relocation, because that's allowed by statute. But our office does have victim services that kind of incorporates all of that.
We'll conclude by saying, you know, sometimes you see this evil, you hear about these tragedies, and you just kind of, you know, you get down in the dumps. I certainly do, looking at the docket on my desk some days. I'm like, what are we even doing? You know, man is so fallen when you see this sinful behavior. And I think it's important, you know, to remember that the Lord already won the fight for us. We got to do the best we can in this world to get ready for the next. And I think going into Easter week, it's important to remember that. So God bless everybody. Have a safe Easter. Hope you spend time with family and, you know, get a little breather. God bless you.